Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I am Chris Clements, and Sean is not with us today. He is on vacation with his family. We wish him well. And what we thought we would do today is to do a group of hot takes for you. And these are videos that we skim from the internets and from YouTube. And they're of interest to our listeners and viewers. There are things that are happening in the world. There are things that are happening in politics or business, but certainly have been the hot issues of the day over the last week or so. And our first video is one that we gleaned just in the last couple of days, and it has to do with our fair Congressman David Schweikert. And what we're going to do is just run one of these videos for you. You can listen to it also online. And then I'll be giving some commentary as the video concludes. But this is where David Schweikert last week has been a great friend of the show, a tremendous congressman for the state of Arizona, and he's worked tirelessly on the tax bill that finally passed Congress, but squeaked through the House of Representatives. And it squeaked through because there's only so many votes to be had in the House of Representatives. And it just turns out that this dynamic, intelligent, forthright congressman who had worked on this bill in Ways and Means, as a member of Ways and Means, and he had been up for, I think, 36 hours working on this bill, compromising, wheeling, dealing, and he misses the vote. And he misses the vote because he falls asleep. There were two congressmen who fell asleep and missed the vote. So we're going to play this video for you. Please like and subscribe wherever you enjoyed this podcast.
An Arizona congressman is explaining how he fell asleep during this week's key vote on President Trump's mega bill.
12 News journalist Bram Resnick has more on what happened to Republican David Schweikert and why there are still concerns about Republican cuts to popular programs like Medicaid. Bram?
At Caribe, House Republicans voted to pass the massive spending bill in the middle of the night while most of their constituents were sleeping. Turns out that Congressman David Schweikert was sleeping too. Schweikert says he pulled an all-nighter to get the bill ready for a final House vote.
So look, it's embarrassing.
Congressman David Schweikert is famous for his charts sounding the alarm about a fiscal crisis.
I fell asleep sitting here with my coffee mug in my lap watching the minority leader do their speech.
So when it came time to vote this week on a Trump-backed megabill that economists say would deepen the fiscal crisis, the Fountain Hills Republican showed up late. Here's how Schweikert explained it to a Tucson podcaster.
The speaker slams the gavel down as I'm walking in the door. Apparently they didn't need me.
Okay, well, they did need him, and it's really important for him not to miss those votes. And this is just something that Sean and I have been kind of pushing upon the fair congressman for a while. And that is the need for a really dedicated and forthright and a great chief of staff for David, will keep him on task, on time, and on message. And David kind of runs his office the way he wants to run his office, but there should have been staffers there, in the same room with him, making sure that he was not going to miss that vote. That vote was that crucial. And the lies that are being perpetrated now by the left, that there's these massive Medicaid cuts, are completely untrue. He needs to be available to defend that, and him missing the vote demeans his ability to defend the vote, to defend why it is we need to make sure that people who are able-bodied are forced to work, which is what this bill does. And it does a lot of other great things, including extending the much-needed and completely business-friendly Trump tax cuts. So it's really disappointing. It's definitely going to be used against him in this next cycle. And I think he can elevate himself and put this behind him by actually retooling his staff a little bit. And that's just a non-solicited advice to my good friend David Schweikert. Okay, the next Oh my goodness. The next video is actually germane to what's going on here in Phoenix. And that's the fact that our Phoenix police have been under a consent decree by the Department of Justice for some time. And the new Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Harmeet Dhillon, did a podcast with Tucker Carlson where she explained that she was going through all these different consent decrees throughout the country and basically rescinding them because they were first of all, they're all BS, number one. And number two, they're impeding the ability for these police departments to do their job. So roll this. Please like and subscribe wherever you enjoy your podcast.
And then we have Memphis, which we already discussed. And so in some cases, these cities didn't go along with them. They fought the DOJ. So, good for them having some integrity in their city government. I've heard from members of Congress in some of these jurisdictions who said this consent decree is simply, I'll give you the example of Phoenix. So Phoenix seems to be an attempt by the Department of Justice to go after a sort of purple, reddish jurisdiction and hold them accountable for trying to impose quality of life standards. So, for example, Phoenix has been called to account in the DOJ report that we're withdrawing as part of my investigation for moving the homeless along. And what law do they cite in this consent decree analysis? They cite the Boise, Idaho case that people are familiar with, where the court, the Ninth Circuit, held that it was unconstitutional for Boise to try to move homeless people off the street unless you had a nice housing to put them in. Well, the United States Supreme Court reversed that. And so they reversed it in the Grants Pass case. So we're even today in the DOJ's recent consent decree work simply ignoring binding Supreme Court precedent that says that what the police were doing in Phoenix is A-OK under the law and hoping to simply bully them into compliance.
Yeah, so this is fantastic what she's doing because these consent decrees have been used as a bludgeon of police departments that might have one bad apple, a couple bad apples. And basically the DOJ, what they do is they come in and put an enormous amount of costs and paperwork and compliance on these police departments. And the tune of some 200 million is one estimate or one number that she threw out during that interview with Tucker. And it's unbelievable. And with the city of Phoenix, like she said, the consent decree, the scope of it had to do with the police basically doing their job and what Phoenix has been known for many years, which is keeping control of the homeless population, moving them along off the street, making sure that encampments are not forming on street corners and on canals. So good kudos to her. I know a lot of people who know her. This was a great interview on Tucker Carlson. Go check it out. It was really, she was really forthcoming about how many consent decrees are out there and how the DOJ has basically tried to impose its will upon many a police department throughout the country. The next video is from Senator John Kennedy. And this is so all the department secretaries are heading to Capitol Hill with their budgets. They're trying to justify their budget requests to both the Senate committees of purview and also the House committees of purview. And Senator Kennedy from Louisiana gets into it with the Energy Secretary as to how money had been spent in the previous administration, which is rather enlightening. So please like and subscribe wherever you enjoy podcasts.
Now, there have been some allegations today that you've cut tens of thousands of employees. Is that accurate?
Well, I think the allegations were thousands, and our headcount will ultimately be reduced by thousands, but we are doing it slowly.
You've got 16,000 now?
Yes.
And you think you can do it with fewer than 16,000?
Correct.
What's wrong with that?
I think it's just common sense business.
Yeah. Businesses do it every day in the real world.
American taxpayers deserve it.
That's never happened in the federal government. I mean, it's easier to divorce your spouse than to get rid of a federal employee up here. That's not the way the world works, is it, Mr. Secretary?
It's not the way the world should work. And I give enormous credit to President Trump, who had the boldness to say, if there's a right thing that needs to be done and it's difficult, please do it. And so, yes, this is new territory. This is not what happens normally in the federal government, but it is what needs to happen periodically in the federal government. And I give the credit to President Trump, who's willing to take the heat and has set the departments free. Make the changes you need to make to better serve American taxpayers and American consumers. And across his administration, that's what's being done.
So this debate that's going on right now within the federal agencies in terms of headcount and in terms of the amount of people you need to run those agencies, he just made a startling admission that the Department of Energy has 16,000 employees, 16,000, and he's just trying to cut a couple thousand. You think that's really going to affect our ability to deliver energy policy to the American people? Probably not. It's probably having to do with a lot of duplication, which is where places like HHS and the Education Department, which is now being completely, defunded and destaffed, is where they're finding the savings. And it's amazing to me that we can continue to add personnel, add costs, but when it comes to finally right-sizing the government, reducing personnel, reducing costs, there's an uproar. You're even seeing that with the defunding of things like NPR and PBS. They filed a lawsuit against the federal government, against the Trump administration, saying they have a First Amendment right to funding by the federal government, which is completely outrageous. So that's just a microcosm of what's going on. But the gravy train is over, whether it's in this budget cycle or the next budget cycle. I think this administration is committed to making sure that this gravy train for all these agencies end. Okay, the next video, I don't know if any of you caught the popcorn that was flying last week when Secretary Rubio, Marco Rubio, also went to the Foreign Relations Committee, much in the same way as the Secretary of Energy. And it was during his budget request. And he was questioned by Senator Chris Van Hollen, who famously went down to El Salvador and enjoyed a margarita with the Tren de Aragua, MS-13, now considered terrorist gentleman from Maryland, who it won't be coming back anytime soon into this country. Senator Van Hollen inexplicably exclaimed that he was really unhappy with the now secretary and would never have voted for him again. And that's when the popcorn ensued. So like and subscribe wherever you enjoy podcasts, please.
Like the McCarthy-era witch hunts of the 1950s, your campaign of fear and repression is eating away at foundational values of our democracy. Back then, it took one voice, Attorney Joseph Welch, to cut through the hysteria with the simple question that marked the beginning of the end of that shameful era. He asked Senator McCarthy, have you no sense of decency? And I would ask you the same, Secretary Rubio. But you have shown through your words and your actions what the answer is. And I have to tell you directly and personally that I regret voting for you for Secretary of State. I yield back.
May I respond?
You may sit.
Well, first of all, your regret for voting for me confirms I'm doing a good job, based on what I know.
Well, that's
about
just
your
a
record
flippant
and what you
statement,
stand
Mr.
for.
Secretary.
Can I respond, Mr. Chairman?
You may. I didn't ask.
Senator,
question.
please let the Secretary have
I'd be
the floor.
happy to, but then I can respond to his.
Your
response.
time's up, Senator, and willfully used, I might add.
Well-
your remarks do not represent the view of this committee.
Well, Mr.
Secretary, please.
Well, I'd like to. I can't respond to everything he said because much of these are untrue, but I'll go through a few. First of all, I'm actually very proud of the work we've done with USAID. For example, I don't regret cutting $10 million for male circumcisions in Mozambique. I don't know how that makes us stronger and more prosperous as a nation.
I raised
don't regret
Sudan, Mr.
psychosocial support services.
I
for
raised
USAID.
Sudan, Mr. Secretary.
Can I respond,
not
Mr. Chairman, or do I?
Senator, I'd ask you to suspend. You had 7 straight minutes of
I chose to
railing on-
use my time that way, Mr. Chairman. That's my right to
Please
use my
suspend
time that way.
Secretary Rubio.
Well, I can go on. I mean, there's other things here. We spent $227,000 for Big Cat's YouTube channel from USAID. We spent $14 million for social cohesion in Mali, whatever the hell that means. So I can go on and on. I got the list here, and there's more. I didn't even bring the whole list. In the case of El Salvador, absolutely. Absolutely. We deported gang members, including the one you had a margarita with. And that guy is a human trafficker, and that guy is a gangbanger, and the evidence is going to be clear. In the days to come, you're going to see who you went to defend.
I'm sorry,
Please,
Mr. Chairman.
Secretary Rubio has the floor.
Mr. Chairman, he can't make unsubstantiated comments like that.
Secretary Rubio has the floor. You had
Secretary
your time.
Rubio should take that testimony to the federal court of the United States because he hasn't done it under oath.
Here's another point, okay? There is a division in our government between the federal branch and the judicial branch. No judge in the judicial branch cannot tell me or the president how to conduct foreign policy. No judge can tell me how I have to outreach to a foreign partner or what I need to say to them. And if I do reach that foreign partner and talk to them, I have under no obligation to share that with the judiciary branch. Just like a judge cannot order me to negotiate with a foreign minister of Russia, they cannot order me to negotiate with a foreign minister or the president of El Salvador. And if I...
So that last exchange really encapsulates the debate that's happening in our country right now, with district judges halting many of the Trump administration's initiatives, especially when in terms of when it comes to immigration. And that entire hearing was just a masterclass by Secretary Rubio. He has become the high point of the Trump administration, and that taking down of Senator Van Hollen for his just arrogance about what is true, which is he did have a margarita with a terrorist. He did have a margarita with an MS-13 member, and that MS-13 member was a human trafficker in this country, trafficking people through Maryland. So it's amazing to me that, again, the Democrats want to die on this hill. They want to die on the hill of illegal immigration, letting killers and murderers and rapists and terrorists into our country. And then at the same time, you have district judges who believe that they can have issue an injunction, and that that injunction should hold the president's authority to execute our national interests and our foreign policy. That's outrageous. And that's exactly what Secretary Rubio is arguing against there, saying no judge can tell me who to talk to. No judge can tell me how to operate our foreign policy. We will continue to obey the law, but we're going to fight it out in the courts. And we are going to accelerate what we're doing when it comes to rescinding student visas, which was the next part of that exchange, and absolutely getting MS-13 members and Tren de Aragua members out of this country. So that was an amazing masterclass by the former senator of the great state of Florida. Our last hot take is something that we've talked on this show a lot about, and that is COVID and the lies and not even misleading facts that we received from our government with regard to COVID. It was just announced this week by Secretary Kennedy that COVID shots will no longer be required or suggested for newborns, for healthy babies, and for expecting mothers. Wow. Well, the COVID shot, you're going to find out over the next several months, shouldn't be required at all because there's been over 34,000 deaths due to myocarditis, and that's mostly young people, and it's absolutely outrageous. So this was a hearing on much of the data that is now being released with regard to COVID and with regard to the COVID vaccine. So let's play it, and please like and subscribe wherever you enjoy podcasts.
So let me summarize them for you. The first one that came on my radar screen that was alarming came from Washington University in St. Louis, August 18th of 2021. The first author is Verma and colleagues. New England Journal of Medicine. 42-year-old man comes into Washington University Hospital with vaccine myocarditis. The infection's ruled out. It's the vaccine. He's in the hospital. This is one of our best hospitals in the United States. He dies 3 days after taking Moderna. They can't save him in the hospital.
Say, Dr. McCullough, move the microphone just a little bit away from you.
Then one was reported from Korea by Choi and colleagues. This is now a younger man. Just a few days after Pfizer, he comes in the hospital. He dies within 8 hours of being in the hospital. I can tell you, I'm a cardiologist. That doesn't even happen with heart attacks. He dies within 8 hours. I examined all of the slides and the images that the Koreans had showed us. It looked like somebody took a blowtorch to that heart. It was so completely fried with inflammation. His heart was destroyed. These cases, which were widely known at the time, should have gotten everyone's attention. Everyone should have been laser focused on this. We should never have someone die after taking a vaccine that's directly caused to the vaccine. Then Gill and colleagues, Connecticut, published in Archives of Pathology, 2 boys, aged 16 and 17, who die a few days after taking Pfizer. These are teenagers. They're found dead at home by their parents. They're absolutely horrified. They request an autopsy.
So that's Dr. McCullough. He's been ringing this alarm now for several years, and people followed him online. He's been silenced. He's been blacklisted. This is Senator Ron Johnson's committee. It's the data that is now being released. It's stark. It's scary. I'm really grateful not to have vaccinated my boy or any of my kids. They are now, what's coming out is that there were no placebo tests done with the COVID vaccines. It was rushed for development. And then Pfizer and Moderna were given legal protection to introduce those vaccines. They knew what it would do. Many people will claim that the vaccines save millions of lives. That may or may not be true, but what is becoming more and more true is that what really saved lives was the fact you were exposed to COVID, you recovered, and then you had natural immunity. And there were other treatments that were more helpful than the vaccine. 38,000 lives lost. If you have over 5 or 6 lives that are lost because of vaccine injury or any other type of drug, they halt it. All the different lies that we were told about COVID, where it began, you have to stay 6 feet apart, wear a mask, it'll protect you, take a shot, you won't get COVID, you'll be inoculated, you won't transfer it. All that was not true. And so a lot of these hearings, it's been a hearing-orama up in Capitol Hill this week between the budget presentations on both the Senate and the House side, and then hearings like this. These are hearings that this country needs. We need to have a reckoning, and we need to have the truth. And it's, hats off to Senator Johnson. He's been ringing the alarm on this for quite some time, and he's going to continue to have hearings on this issue in the future. So with that, thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for subscribing. We will be back with you this next week. I'll have a special guest in our larger studio, a friend of mine from GCU, Corey Frank, who runs Branch 49 there, the big telecom and recruiter organization. And we are really happy to have him, get an update on what they're doing out there at Canyon Ventures. So thank you so much for listening. Like and subscribe, and God bless.